So much of what we feel inside is only the moment that we're holding on to other things outside of our control, that we really forget to focus on the moment more than things that are only here in life for a temporary season. For the whole time the earth has ever been around, the whole life that I'm gifted on this earth, whatever that year count is, at the end of my days, is just a glimpse in the lives of everybody that I know, if I could add them all up. For whatever meaning that I will give to myself is nothing more than somebody batting their eyes or somebody just blinking and showing me that they're going to tell themselves whatever it is that they need to tell themselves. So looking for validation is not going to come in any easy form, because the only validation is that I'm here one moment and gone the next. In the totality of things, sure. But things are contradicting in the sense that there's nothing that I can do for anybody, and the same for them to me. In any way, that's good. That's good. Other than just reminding somebody that it's okay to just be, it's okay to feel what you're feeling. But don't unvalidate yourself, because you won't conclude how you feel. The point of understanding that you come from. By caring about those things, that you try not to let them just be things, and you try to give them the reason, the validation, and the room for growth towards the soul, from knowing what it is you come from. And that to go anywhere is just to seek things outside of your own control. There's no room for growth when growth is always on growing. You're trying to solidify a point where things matter so much that you don't lose what it is in front of you, around you, or things in life that make you who you are, because you need anybody else to see what those things are. And it's tough. It's only tough because you make it tough. It's only tough when moments seem tough, but then once the moment's over, then what? The constant battle of not being in the moment and just making things more tough. Because when it's one-on-one with the self, but looking inwards and finding just a moment to pause and be in solitude, to reflect, is the only change that carries you from an aspect of being to the other aspect of being, a flow state. Just being unmoved by the currents in life, just remaining where you are as it passes you by and you pass by it. You're both going in the same place, but the world would seem like it's at odds with you, or whatever the moment, or that in the moment you can't articulate what it is because you haven't yet been further from it to articulate anything, and then the response of who it is inside becomes different, very, very different. And you build it off of established self-esteem, probably unhealthy, but nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. And that's from Einstein. You make things what they are. Nobody else can make anything what they are. So even if things are contradicting, it's the moment. It's being at odds against the moment. It's the contradiction. Because you go on forever and so does the moment, but yet again you don't see things the same way. You don't see as the moment sees, and just let things be what they are. You can't do nothing to change it. And when you're confronted to make a change, because the change needs you to remind it, it's hard not to be broken away from breathing, being focused more so on the point that you get pulled to sometimes when you're just trying to get by, you know. Find peace in the comfort of knowing that complicated things will complicate you away from seeing things for more than they are. Because your focus will be so much more so on those things in their making than they can give you if you're not at peace with yourself and you don't try to make things bigger than you or outside of who it is that you are. Because if it's not just the skin you're born into, then there's nothing else that you can do other than just be like anything else, one that talks and walks. Or like an animal, you think an animal has an easy time with us, and that they understand us, and yet again, they live so peacefully. But humans cannot, because we try to communicate. But we communicate in the ways that makes things less understood than they could ever be comprehended. Because things aren't meant to be comprehended or have a definitive definition to make them solidify into taking away your health, taking away your life. Because you give so much of your life to things that are outside of your own control that you have nothing left for yourself, and that you're really living for everything else's enjoyment and not being felt at peace or at bay with how peaceful it is, and that you can just be in the presence and around without trying to determine the qualities, the traits, the positives, the negatives, and aspect it. Because things in aspect are nothing. They're only an aspect. And that's usually because there's a third thing that concludes it. It's like any triangle, or like 1, 2, 3. Well, one thing is one thing. Two things, that's just another one thing. So 1 + 1 is just 1. It's mathematics, but it's also addition. But then at the same time, it can be used in a philosophical way, which is like a science, which then can result in a history because the way that things can result. And that's why life drains your time away from being in the moment, being healthy in the moment, and being positive, because not everything is positive, but you have to start seeing things that way. You have to start seeing and giving, definition for other things that have their room for change, for growth, for it to adapt into something that is positive, so it can know a positive self of itself, or side of itself, but it's really the self. It's not a side of it. Then you're making it feel as though it has its angles, and then it'll never be viewed incomplete. And it'll always, it's like saying, or the saying that's like, you can't, the more, or the ability to judge a fish by the way it can articulate climbing a tree, or by the way, a fish can be judged for its ability to climb the tree. It says more about the tree and the fish, in that makes it feels as though the fish will think and go its entire life thinking that it is stupid, and the tree will never know that in the way that the fish knows it, because something else looks at a fish and judges it for that. It's something that's a burden that you put on other people for making it have something that maybe doesn't flow because it's not meant for it, because you're negatively aspecting it in a way that it's just trying to bring it down. And the fish will know that, because when you think in heavy terms of negativeness, from letting things have a definite fill, because the side that you see of it, you conclude it, because you don't allow that room for growth, or that it can be anything but how you know it by, that it weighs you down, so that when anything or opportunity comes around, or not even opportunity, but when you validate your okayness and recognition, others may take that as a need for validation, a need for them to have to be at conflict with you, to be at war with you, because they're at war with themselves, to be demanding of maybe the positive confidence or the positive trait or the characteristic that itself sees, and it thinks it's a characteristic, by thinking that deterministic. It needs to be seen as something that has something, because something else said it lacked it. because somebody said, hey, that fish cannot climb a tree. What's wrong with that fish? It spends its life as a fish with the ability to climb the trees only to our knowledge. You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink. You can give a man words, but thinking becomes his life, and thus the man is lost to his own knowledge. That leading how we think is to be a fish deterministic of what is not in nature ours to begin with. It's okay to have a healthy ego. It's okay to have pride for what it is that you love. But to be belittled and to feel so down on something that only you can create for yourself. Sometimes life reminds us that other people bring us to these lows so they can experience new highs without taking us with them, in regards to the stance that sometimes being from the low side, seeing all of the up, wondering why it is you can't amount to shit, when it's really they're amounting, that they don't aid back in being healthy and repocerating to say, hey, I see and I can uplift, because it's hard for myself to get over my validation, but I will validate because I feel validated. You can compromise a little bit of self-adequacy, self-regards, to hold space for another, to at least not have to be so burdened by the weight of the world. And I say burdened by the day-to-day toll of life. It's like a bell that rings in the distance and nobody hears, but we know it's there. Or whatever it is that our thoughts come from. And then in our mind, and then in our body and our soul, or the way you look at things, or just the acknowledgement of each aspect that another has been not right, because it puts you at odds against a war that you've already been given to coming into life, and it adds on to the weight that you have to move on by. But that's the thing with swimming, you'll never be in one place all at once, even if you're just floating on your back, staring up and feeling the warmth of the sky radiating down, the wind and the chill of the way that the earth seems to move around you and not be anything but a fluid state for the state that it's in, being the water and not on land, where you can move mountains rather than allow the sandcastles to be your house built of sand, glass, scorched by the sun. The truth and all-knowing is that I don't have to make myself into somebody that I'm not, because the earth may need to be water and land and sky and wind and everything that we give definition to or make a word or a thing out of, because we don't know what things are, because we see something else and we wonder in relation to ourselves that it has a known structure and a form for the way that it can be compared, because others want to use that to their abilities for some type of quantum leap in understanding from here to there. But from here to there, they just want to take away from the meaning of instilling, looking at things, acknowledging, knowing it's there, but moving past it, letting go, getting over it. Because it's an outside circumstance, and yeah, things may be nice, but where it is that we're going is a lot better than what it is we can use in the moment to get ourselves further from an understanding one-on-one, just to debate over our opinion. Because in relation to who it is that we are and what it has made us, have an opinion of it back, so it can seal us and then we'd be left with nothing. How do you think God feels? God would probably say amen. He doesn't know what anything is. So we think that we can accept who we are. Because in relation to it needs acceptance. And accepting that validates it in its whole stance, the one side of it. That it has many faces and therefore seeks for life. But once it feels so satisfied in a way that it forgets and is reminded of stillness, a vampire is still a vampire, even if we don't see it as that. How hard it is to remind something it's vampiristic is difficult. Because in that you go through that journey and that process, which is just unconditional love and change. Tied into one thing to be an answer given. This sometimes can be like a prayer when somebody needs it or needs to release what it is that has been building up. The ascension from low to high is no different from being high at a low place to low in a higher place. It's not 2 steps, it's 1 step. You're low in a high place is better than being low in a high place. It's saying that you don't care about the moment, you care about everything else. It's hard to relate anything. Because then it's you like convincing yourself out of growth, that being incapable to nurture like the sun does requires the earth to be there in order for the sun to feel the way it feels. But those are words. I'm just a part of the me that I feel. So if I'm here in life, and life is the way that it is, it's not my fault for the way things go. Taken in regards for how it is felt and seen and remorsed for, and speaking out of the thoughts not articulated in my head, not out of my heart, felt with all in the need of speaking through the throat, rooted in expansion of being in touch with the nature reality brings when we focus not so much on the cause, but we try to get behind the spring to action, I guess. Or whatever reason the moment is. I am too, and I'm not making anything out of nothing. I'm here for whatever reason I'm here for, and I gotta accept it. So if I feel like I'm doing something good, then it's only good from that flow state that I can do it from. But unless they get it, they get it. And then outside of them being on that same that I was on, that it was received as such, internally, how do you get that to change in the ways that people find themselves articulating, to do it for themselves and not just what is said, to agree and relate that it's something that can move a mountain in the way that's meant to be moved in the way without having to feel as though it's something unknown just bobbing in the water, so close to the surface of what isn't felt the same, that I can't help but notice it, and I feel estranged. Lets me know I'm not too far from, can always be reached. But in that moment, in that stillness, when something feels the way that it feels, the water can seem like it goes on forever. But it's where at in the water, because sometimes the blood of others will keep you from reaching that point of surfacing, to be a part of, being alone in an ocean of so many, to feel the sun rays the way that I do, and not make it all about me and Every time I say me or mine or the way I feel that it's not cut down, somebody else points their finger and says, you're deterministic. And it thinks it knows what it's talking about because it's in the same basking of the sun. Felt the same way through the basking of. That it basks and feels the same. That it felt and it'll bask. And it like a bask in a sun. The sun will always bask. But the warmth and how it's guided, how it's felt, and how it's put above. To be low in a high place and highly in a low place. To just be where it is, that it's it outside of me. Then I absolve into nothingness. Because I recognize the I am. And then meditating to relinquish. Separation from no longer letting it serve me for what it's done for me. That if I can rise to such a place of feeling my acknowledgement and validation and respect that I have is allowing it to be absolved from me so that it can be appreciated and know the appreciation and unconditional love. That my need for it doesn't take away its life and soak all of its rays before it burns out in eternity and leaves forever coldness too. That the last glimpse of it can be reminded in me, but I won't be keeping it alive because it'll be dead. And then into in me it'll fade, and I to it, to the memory that lives on forever when it was, to be basking in movement away from, but to still be nothing that is unchanged. It's a longing. A longing that when spoken about, sometimes it can feel as though it's missed already. But that feeling of missing something can change you so much on the inside that it can bring you to that point that you're always at. If you're longing for something so bad, you gave all your love and all your care and all your might towards it, that anything else, no matter what it is, nothing can ever brings you outside of yourself. Because if so, they have to go through exactly that pain. And why you came from it, where you come from it, where you formulate yourself in it, the differences you make to it, the being difference to it in acknowledgement for it, not how we determine it is, but for it, the way it wants to be felt, following the focus towards the moment. And allowing it to feel its way out and show you. It seeps through. It can keep you in one place. So if they were to find it and reach it, unconditional can be felt and known in a personal way that only you can validate. Give as your validation to others for being who it is that you are. It's like being deterministic. When everything has a side, be deterministic. Don't cause harm unto others. You'll have harm caused onto both because you'll take that harm in what being in a place of deterministic can never move you from. You'll feel pained on. You'll feel painted. You'll feel to think, to be unknown. And that's okay sometimes. Because what others refuse to deal with is not your burden to carry for more than yourself and your validations and reasons. You can give them, but come from a place of being unknown to it, and don't ever let the sun and being the basking in the wave And the entire wave that you are, make you feel as though you are just one point that they can jot down to make you into anything. Because you wouldn't be on that wave if you can't move on from the point that you're at to be among all the other waves. Being your own moment, your own dance. One dance away from the flow of out of ebb and state. It's just ebb and flow. Not in state, but at points that you'll seep into for that meaning. Once everybody that is coming on also on this planet made something into something that it's not. Should remind it to be fair to yourself, remind you to be nice to yourself. And don't give a fuck what anybody has to think. Because the second you put your emotions out there, people turn it into a game and make it about me and I and them and they. But I'm talking to myself in regards for needing to hear what another person would say for themselves if they care, but they're not me. So all I can do is just speak. Have words. Love, have words.